So this week in reading, guys, you can see that we are looking at how we interpret visual information. So we know that as readers, we often come across nonfiction text, right? That includes all of these nonfiction text features, whether it's like a chart or a graph or a table or a caption or even just a photograph. But sometimes we may be guilty of like skipping right over those or just kind of glancing at them, but really good, strong readers, they take the time to really pay close attention to those nonfiction text features because oftentimes they include information that is not mentioned in the text. So it's in addition to and helps us better understand the text. So it says right here, guys, if you want to follow along, while reading informational text, you often see photos, diagrams, and timelines. That's what we just said. These visuals explain ideas about a topic that words alone cannot. You might also see graphs with quantitative, meaning numbers, information, or other data. If you come across a special text feature, figure out its purpose. Ask yourself, what information does this text feature give me? And how does it work together with the details in the text to help me understand this topic? So I have the directions right here to read the text and study the bar graph and read to figure out how the graph helps us understand the text. So here's a very short text, just a paragraph, and then I see this graph here. It looks like we're talking about fish in a fish tank. But now I want you guys to take a look over here at this graphic organizer that I'm using. You are going to complete a very similar graphic organizer today on your own. So it's going to be really important that you understand how to use this graphic organizer. So I have a question here. We want to follow along. It says, were you able to interpret? That means figure out the information in the text and graph. From the details, you should have a good idea of how many fish are in the tank and what kinds of fish live in it. So there's two things that I'm thinking about here. And my directions are to use the passage and the graph to fill in the chart below. Okay, so it looks like I've got two columns here, and in the first column it's focusing on what the text says, so details that I read actually in the article. And then this side over here is going to focus on that nonfiction text feature. In this example, it's a graph. It could be a diagram, it could be a picture, it could be something different, but in this text I see that it's a bar graph. So let's go through now. Again, we want to focus on how many fish and what kind of fish live in there. So I'm right back over here now on the text, and let's see. A few months ago, I helped my science teacher set up a fish tank. The tank has 3 types of fish. We put in just 2 of the largest type of fish and many of the smaller types of fish. The tank is large enough to follow this rule. Each fish needs about 1 gallon of water to be healthy. So most of that was pretty easy to follow along. This part right here, I got kind of confused on. The tank has 3 types of fish. I'm assuming this is like 3 bar graphs, 3 types maybe. We put in just 2 of the largest type of fish and many of the smaller types of fish. Okay. So now I'm going to go over here to my graphic organizer. Well, the first connection is exactly what I just was thinking and said to you guys, that the text says the tank has 3 types of fish. So then it never told me in the actual text what types of fish they are. So then I look at the bar graph here. It's labeled types of fish, and then I see 1, 2, 3 bars. Hopefully you guys are following along and you can see that. So what the graph shows is the 3 types of fish. The 3 types of fish are, and then they even go on to name them. An angelfish, a danio, I've never heard of that before, and a tetra. I've heard of those. So again, not mentioned in the text, but presented here in the bar graph. So now what else? What other connection did I make? So how many types of fish? I already figured out what kinds, but now I need to think about how many fish. Well, there was that part there that I read. We put in just 2 of the largest type and many of the smaller types of fish. So I'm going to include that detail. That's where my understanding got just a little, I was a little confused. We put in 2 types, or just, no wait, we put in, what did it say? Just 2 of the largest type of fish and many of the smaller types of fish. Okay. So that's what I read, but what I don't understand is, okay, so which one was the largest, which one is the smallest, and then how many of each type. So now I need to look at this graph to make that connection. Well, it looks like they're counting up by 2s. This side over here labels the number of fish. So it looks like angelfish there were 2, the Danio had 8, and Tetra there's 6. So there are 2 angelfish, 8 Danio fish, and what did I say for Tetra? 6. 6 Tetra fish in the fish tank. There was also this added part about like the largest, so 2 of the largest. When they said that, I know that there are 2 angelfish in the tank, so now I know that there's something else I learned here. The angelfish are the largest type in the fish tank. And then it says, and many of the smaller types of fish. Many of the smaller types. So then the other fish were the Danio and the Tetra. So I also learned that the Danio and Tetra are both smaller types of fish. See how much I learned from just this graph? In addition to what I learned in the text. Today on your own, you guys have a new text to read. It's all about features of the ocean floor. You have a similar graphic organizer where you are going to think about what the text says and then what the diagram and the graph show. So in part 2 of this video, I'm going to go show you guys the graphic organizer, so I'll see you in just a second. All right, so we are back, and this is the text that you are going to read on your own now. Features of the ocean floor. You can see that there are 2 nonfiction text features here in this text. So in the first section, now look over here at the graphic organizer, it says use the information about the abyssal plain in the Mariana Trench to complete the chart below. Identify what you learned from the text and what you learned from each diagram. So in the first column, you're going to focus on that abyssal plain and then what you learned from the text about this topic right here. And then you're going to connect it to this nonfiction text feature, the features of the ocean floor. So what did you learn from this diagram? Then you're going to go over here and you are going to read a little bit about the Mariana Trench. And then you see this graphic right here, the highest and deepest places on Earth. There's a graph here. So you're going to tell me then what you learned from that graph and in addition to what you learned in the text. There's a question down here that I'd like you guys to respond to. It is, why do you think the author presented certain information visually rather than in words? So when you look at this right here, this text feature and this text feature, why did your author choose to include these and not just like write about it? Using the information here and just explaining it. So why would your author include those? Let me know if you guys have any questions. We'll be going over this tomorrow.